Hello, Intune friends. In today's video, we're going to speak about compliance policy. And that's something I see sometimes on forums when someone describe an error. And it's very often someone put a post, hey, check if your client is compliant. And very seldom that is actually the problem. So sometimes in the console, you see not compliant and it looks red. So you think, oh, that's bad. But unless you're using conditional access, and we'll speak a bit about that later in the video, you don't have to worry if it's not compliance. It's not as bad as it looks in the console. So let's go into the console and take a look at that. So here I'm under devices. I have 4 devices, 2 Windows and 2 Linux, and that was the previous video. And there we check for compliant. That means that you had to have encryption, and only this one is encrypted and this not. That's why it show up as non-compliant. In this video, we will only do compliance policy for Windows. So before we create 2, we're gonna check if they have BitLocker encryption, that firewall is on, that they have antivirus, that their version is the one we want, just in order to do some reporting. So if we go here to dashboard, it exists 2 different device policies. 3 are already built in. So as spoken, this is the one who is not compliant because it doesn't have encryption, that's why. But if we go here under settings compliance, so I went the dashboard first here, settings compliance. Here you see that we have 3 built in. These all machines get. And the first one, see if we can expand that one a bit, is named has a compliance policy assigned, and actually it's only the Linux devices who have it have a compliance policy. That's why it showed only 2. So my 2 Windows machine actually fail on this one. You must have at least one compliance policy assigned, and my 2 Windows doesn't have that. They only have these 3 by default. Is active, that means that the device is regular checking in within 30 days. And the last one, that enrolled user exists. So when the machine got enrolled, the Windows with autopilot, that this user haven't left or is deleted. That is true for all. So now we can go to the compliance policy that we're gonna create. So if we go under devices, you have down here, you have compliance policies. And you will see the Linux one that we have created already. So this one was to check for encryption. Now we're going to do for Windows. Before we create this policy, I just want to speak a bit about these 4 here: notification, retired, non-compliant devices, compliance policy settings, and scripts. So we can start with notification. So if one of these policy you're not compliant, we can send an email and do 3 different actions. Let's start with that. So it's a bit backwards. The most fun is going to be in the policy. But it's better to start with this. So let's create a notification. So I'll just call this one GBN compliance notification. It's actually probably not compliant when this show up. So we can do a link to the website of the company portal. I'll skip that. I haven't done this branding for this part, so you can keep that enabled if you have that. But that's not so important for this. So let's go next here. So here we can have a different template depending on the local. So I'm gonna do just one English. I'm gonna say not compliant, and please update your device not compliant. And you could do 1 message per policy, like if it was for BitLocker not enabled or Firewall, we could be more specific in the message. But I'm just going to do 1 here. So then we go next. And that looks good. Perfect. So that's just a message to be sent. Then we have retired non-compliant devices. Here we can see in the policy if we want them to arrive here. So we will see that this one's going to be empty for me. There are none. But you can decide what you want to do with them. You could clear the device their state, or you could retire, basically remove them. Then here is a global setting, compliance policy settings. So here is just to mark device with no compliance policy mark as compliant. That's the case for my Windows machine, so they show up as compliant. Enhanced jailbreak, that's for mobile device, Apple, and I'm not managed that now, so we can keep that disabled. Then for how long, if a machine is compliant but haven't contacted, how long will they stay compliant? And we have that for 30 days default. So I'll keep the default, but feel free to change what fits for you. Scripts, this one is, I never used this one and I read blogs. This is pretty complicated. So, you know, we have done a lot of proactive remediation script and PowerShell script, and you can add a script here who also look for anything you want. So that's very powerful, but we're not going to go through that in this video, maybe a future one. I will have to learn it a bit myself, because you will need a JSON file and it's pretty complicated. So good that we have covered these four, because now we can come to the fun part, so the policies. So we're going to create multiple policies. You could do one policy and add in all requirements, but I'm going to do one for BitLocker and UEFI and secure boot as one for firewall, and one for the version. So let's start to create the policy. Again, here comes the fun part. So select platform. Since I haven't browsed into Windows, it doesn't know which one, and you see it support a lot. So let's take Windows 10 and later, and we create this one. So I'm going to call this one GBN BitLocker. Yeah, let's keep it just that. Verify that BitLocker is enabled and that UEFI secure boot is enabled. If you want to have it to automatically unlock, if not you need a USB stick and the like. Then we come to compliance settings, and we have a lot here, different one. So Microsoft Defender for endpoint will not go through, but we'll look a bit at the others. And if we look custom compliance here, so here is where you could use the script that I mentioned earlier. So if you put required here, you have to select the script, and you also need a JSON file. Pretty advanced, so I haven't done this myself yet, so it might come in a future video. So we skip this one for now. Device health. This one's going to be for our BitLocker policy. So we require BitLocker. Yes, that means it has to be encrypted. And that means that it's going to take some time, because if you have a new machine, you will need, it takes some time for the disk to be encrypted. So it's not going to happen instant. Require secure boot, that's in the BIOS firmware, yes. Require code integrity, I'm going to put required here, but if you are in a work environment, I would be reluctant to do that directly. Well, you can always do it for reporting, but it will check the integrity of your boot file. So if you have another third party who maybe load stuff, that could be an issue. So be a bit more careful with these. These two are pretty straight on. So that's enough for this policy. We're going to create more and go through the others. So we go next here. And here we have 3 actions. So first, mark as non-compliant if this doesn't happen after, let's say, 2 days. So we are nice to give some time, so the BitLocker can kick in. Then we have 2 others here. We can send an email. That's the template that we created before. So now we need to select our template, the one we just created earlier. So we take this one, select, and we could add additional recipient. It should go automatically to me already, so I'm already selected. We can add this one as well. And then we can also add the list to the retire list if this doesn't happen. I don't want to do that with this one, so I'm going to delete it, but sure, send an email. So we can go next, and then assign to who. I have already created a group for this. I'm going to show that one actually. So if I add all devices, it's going to include my Linux devices, and BitLocker doesn't work on Linux. So I'm going to add, and I actually created one called all Windows devices. I'm going to show what that one looks like. So we have already seen the Linux devices. So now we have 2 devices who will get this compliance policy, verify that they have BitLocker, secure boot, and the integrity. And you can exclude. I mean, I could add all devices and exclude the Linux one. That would have worked too, but that wouldn't look so good. So I realize it's 2 things that I want to show. So first, let me show the group. I'm going to open that in a new tab that I created. So it's a dynamic group that just look if the OS is Windows, then it becomes a member of that one. So I'll go groups. And we have all Windows devices here, so I click on that one. And then you have dynamic membership rules. And here it actually says if device OS type is equal to Windows. The one we did in the previous video, it was the same, but we put Linux. The second stuff I wanted to show that I forgot was the template that we created, the email. So we can see what that looks like when it gets sent. So that gets sent if it's non-compliant, but we can send it a bit before as a test. So I'm going to go back to compliance policies, notifications, and let's go into the one we created just earlier. And here you see you can send a preview email. So in order for this to work, if you have followed my videos, I had to go into Exchange Online and approve my custom DNS. But if you're using the on Microsoft.com, then you shouldn't need that. So now I have sent an email what it will look like if a machine is not compliant. With our subject, it should say not compliant. So let me go into my webmail. So it's coming from Microsoft Endpoint Manager, our topic, not compliant. So here's our subject, not compliant. Please update your device. And thank you very much. I like this extremely much. Block for now. Submit. I'll skip. I'm in the recording. Thank you very much. So the subject is here, not compliant, and here's our text. So we could have a lot more templates and have a lot more information like contact help desk, phone number, of course, and give a lot more instruction. This is just a quick test. Okay, so that's how you send a preview email when you're in your notification. So now we can go back. So we have created our compliance policy. It's active now, GBN BitLocker. Let's create one more, and this time we can maybe look firewall or like. Yeah, let's do that. So select platform, it's Windows 10 or later. Let's create. I'll call it GBN Firewall. Policy to check if, well, Microsoft Firewall is active. Then we need to find that here. We know custom was PowerShell script. Device health is BitLocker. This is device property. That's about which version we have. So of Windows. We're going to do one for that as well. So let's go system security. So we can scroll down a bit here. It's going to be about firewall. So here you see encryption, but that's not BitLocker. It's just that anything is encrypted files. So we want firewall is on. I would like one for TPM also and antivirus. So we're probably going to create a lot of policies, but this one I just want to know that the firewall is on, because we definitely want the firewall on. If someone remove it, we can immediately, I'm actually fine with immediately 0 if the firewall is not on. We can again send the email to the user. We can put 1 day, I think we put 0. No, let's put it immediately when it's not on. And let's put our template. Again, here it would have been nice to have a template saying just the firewall. So it's, you should definitely have more. The rest is good. So we can go next. We assign, we're going to assign it to the same group, all our Windows devices. Since this is a Windows firewall setting, it's checking. And create this one. So now we have a second policy. And again, we could have added both this policy in one big, but if they fail, it can be good to know, oh, it's the BitLocker works, but not the firewall. So we can create one easy policy again, Windows 10 or later. Let's call this one GBN antivirus. Is it capital V? I think so, antivirus. Maybe it's not. policy checking antivirus is active. We go next. So we know that's under system security. We scroll down and we just switch the antivirus one. And here you could add anti-spyware if you wanted. And we put that required. I'm not going to send this email now, and we want this immediately. Yes. And we add the same group, all Windows devices, select, go next, and create. So we will create two more. Let's create one for TPM is enabled. Could I put that one with the BitLocker? Actually, I'll put that one with the BitLocker, since I think TPM is not only used for BitLocker, but to run Windows 11 you need TPM, so for Windows 11 it's not really needed. So let's change here, and I'm just gonna add TPM to this policy. I think they belong together. There we have trusted platform required. And again, for Windows 11 that is a requirement unless you are naughty and hacking and doing the register fix. So let's do only one more, and that's gonna check which version of Windows. So let's say that the version that my devices have right now is the good one. So I'm just gonna go there and copy that one. But if it's below that version, it's no good. So I take this one. It's fairly recent from this recording. So then we create the policy, select the policy, Windows 10 or later, create. Let's call this one GBN minimum OS version. GBN require at least Windows 11 version, and I just paste. Oh, I thought I had it. I have my favorite Windows V. Oh, I thought I copied that one. I did not. Okay. Sorry for that. Where is the Windows version? I clicked on it, so I have to go to, it's under properties. It's not under properties. It's under hardware, of course. Windows is a hardware. So we go under hardware. Here we have the version. See if it let me copy this time. We say must version of that. Okay, we go next. So under compliance settings, now we have to be under device properties. So here we have minimum version. That's exactly what we want. We want it to be minimum this. Max version, I don't have a problem if it's newer. And mobile device I don't have. So that's the only one I'm going to put for this one. An action immediately. Well, we can give this one 3 days in case if someone joins with the older one, we give them 3 days to update. We don't send any message, add group, all Windows devices. So now we have a few policies here. So now I have only 2 Windows machines, but if I have 1,000, probably a few will, maybe BitLocker's not kicking off, maybe one have manually disabled firewall. Well, that's an easy way for us to find out. So I just want to speak about the different states they can be in. So you see here you have compliant and not compliant. Those are the most common one, but there are 4 other states, 3 states not supported by Linux and 1 state only by Linux. 3 states that are not by Linux is in grace period, not evaluated, or not synced. So that basically means that it could be newly enrolled device, or they haven't synced yet and you apply a new policy. And the one that only Linux have is checking status. It replaces all those 3 previous one. That means it have not checked in yet for a new policy. So again, if one of these show up as not compliant, no panic. It's not an error. You can totally work. It's only if you have set up conditional access. And I'll just mention quickly what conditional access. I'm going to do a video about that in the future. It's for example, if you have SharePoint and you have some files and maybe you have finance files, for example, with data, you want to be sure that the devices who access them are compliant, that they have BitLocker. So if they download sensible sensible documents, you know they are encrypted if the laptop gets stolen. You want it to have antivirus, you want it to have firewall to be secure. So then you can set up conditional access, which means there's a condition for the access. So not everyone can access this resource. So for example, if I would have enabled a SharePoint site with conditional access, for example, then these 3 machines would be able to access, and this one would say, hey, you can't access it unless you fix your issue, which is encryption for this one. So again, if you see not compliant, it doesn't really mean something is bad, but it can be good to look after, and you get that in the dashboard, all who are not compliant. So it's a fast way to see it. So that's most what I wanted to show. So under devices again, you can go under Windows if you just want to see the Windows compliance policies. So here we are on the Windows, so we don't have to see the Linux one. And here are our 4 one we created. 1 to check if you have antivirus, 1 for BitLocker, 1 for Firewall, and 1 for minimum OS version. Because yeah, we don't want the machines to have too much vulnerability. We want the firewall to be secure. We definitely want the encryption if it's a laptop and it gets stolen. And we want antivirus to be secure. So thank you very much for following along this video. See you in the future one. Thanks a lot.